Ayman Khan here for Seconds Out. Pleasure to be joined by the Sun boxing reporter Wally Downs Jr. doing the level one course, right? Wally, what are you learning?
Journalism.
Teach me all about it.
No, it's a level one England boxing course to be a coach's assistant. um, I trained in a really good gym in Feltham Community Club, and a few months ago, some young kids came in, tried to sign up, and the coach had to say not allowed because you have a quota, so you have one coach for 10 kids or one kid for 12. I don't know. And yeah, he had to turn people away because they didn't have enough coaches. So I rushed through a volunteer affiliation, which means more kids can come in, and then yeah, if you get your level one, then you can do more to help and stuff. So take a lot out of the sport, asking fighters personal questions, watching fighters get beat up and so uh, yeah, try and do something half decent as a human being for once, Ayman.
Do you find that it helps you understand the game more so being at a grassroots level, whether it be learning fundamentals, teaching boxing, just helping you, I guess, get that motivation and drive for the sport, which sometimes, and we'll be talking about, can kind of leave you a little bit disappointed or disheartened.
I remember this question has been asked a few times before. I don't think being involved in boxing or doing boxing or training or doing anything like that makes you a better boxing journalist. Um, I don't remember ever hearing about Colin Hart being a young boxer, or I don't think I've never read any of Don McRae's books saying that Don boxed. And I think most people would say that those two have led the way in terms of writing, like reporting and book writing recently. Like Chris McKenna at the Daily Star was an excellent amateur boxer. His family runs a great gym in Ireland, but I don't think I don't think he would say it helps him. It doesn't help. Like I don't know. I don't think so. But yeah, I just like to do it. Um, and yeah, sometimes it can be when you're covering something that's negative, or yeah, when you're something not that Ben Eubank is negative, but there is so much sort of toxicity around it. Um, that yeah, trying to do something nice. Shouldn't need to. You shouldn't need to have a job like that to want to do it. Like, but I just think, mate, honestly, I try to get my two sons to box. They're not interested. Um, I've just got one of my mates that started taking his daughter down to Feltham. Um, I've got our coach of boys under nine football team, and we've got a link up now where we've got 4 or 5 young lads that go and that love it. And it is mental because I covered Scott Westcalf. I wasn't there, but I had to do the stuff. And you see someone like Charlie Wynn or Sharif Lawal, the anyone logical would want to drag their kids a million miles away from a boxing gym, really. But yeah, I suppose everybody, if you work in it long enough and you do it in the right way, then you know that the sport save. Again, I know it's such an old cliche. It saves so many more lives than it takes, and I hope that that doesn't cheapen the lives that it does take. But yeah, I just love being in the boxing gym, mate, with little nutty kids being given something to do.
Let's talk about the impact of two figures in the sport who've recently passed away. I'll start with the most recent one in the form of Colin Hart, who you informed me, I think it was about a week and a half ago, wasn't in the best of health. I did ring Colin's number and was answered by one of his relatives who we had a good chat about him, and a message could be sent over to him, which would help him and the family. So I did have a look.
He did actually tell me. He did tell me before the illness that he always preferred to ghost you. He felt he was a bit of a knob.
Sure he did. Colin never had a bad word to say about anyone, and he absolutely loved.
Yeah,
Just a little bit
yeah.
quick story. Myself and Jonathan Nagya from Pro Boxing Fans absolutely love. Whenever we saw Colin, we'd make a thing to unfortunately bother him a little bit and grab him to get his take on boxing. So he'll be sorely missed from that point of view and getting his takes on boxing and his experience. But obviously you work with him directly with your work at the Sun. What hole will he leave having passed away?
Um, Firstly, I think the main thing you've got to do when a man passes away at 89 years old with the achievements that he's had is celebrate his life.
Yeah.
Um, and I think he I don't think, having known Colin for the few years that I did, I don't think he'd want us sort of wallowing in pity and mourning him for too long. From what I understand, him and his wife Cindy, when they got a diagnosis early on that was quite bad, and then we thought, okay, it might be all right. He'll hit 90, but sadly he didn't. But when they got the bad news, the really bad news, he had all his family that live in Australia straight over. From what I understand, he got to spend the last sort of maybe fortnight of his life, looking back on everything. And from what, yeah, they just celebrated his life and his family and his achievements and his daughters and his grandchildren. Uh, so that was great. And then the job that I got given was to, run around and get as many tributes as I possibly could from people, which was tough because, Colin, I suppose, properly retired from being on the beat, I mean, maybe 15 years ago. Um, so he didn't, like a lot of the young world champions or the fighters that I deal with day to day never really worked with Colin. Um, so I had to go sort of back to his generation. I got massive help from Anne-Marie Randall, who used to be Frank Warren's PR lady. I got massive help from Geraldine Davis, who looks after Lennox. Um, my desk got an incredible tribute from Frank Bruno, which I would implore anyone to go and read. Really took, really caught me what Frank said about him. And then lots, and then I did talk to a lot of other fighters who helped me out. Ricky Hatton said some lovely stuff. Anthony Crolla, Johnny Nelson, Spencer Oliver. But Jane Couch was a great one because Colin, as you know, Colin was a man of a certain era and a certain age, and female boxing was not for him. But James said that he was wonderful with her. He didn't like female boxing, but he liked her. And those women that I mentioned all said that although Colin didn't want to watch females fighting, he loved having women in the sport who helped, and he was always great with them. Yeah, and every fighter that I spoke to was in a rush to pay tribute to him. And I think also what he ended up doing, I think two things were important that stuck out to me. When you work for a tabloid newspaper, the minute you introduce yourself, people do sort of go, "Oh, here we go." I think I remember reading a survey once where we were just below lawyers and estate agents in terms of like public trust and opinion. When anyone says to me, "Oh, what do I know?" "Oh, I'm a journalist, sports journalist." "Oh, yeah, who do you work for?" I say, "The Sun." But Colin seemed to transcend that. Like I think he become bigger than a boxing journalist. Lennox called him a fabric of the sport, and I think he wasn't a part of British boxing media or British boxing journalism. Colin Hart had become a part of British boxing, and I think he did that by not just turning up for pay-per-view shows, by attending. I would see him at Wembley Arena, I would see him at the Copper Box, I'd see him at amateur shows, I'd see him definitely at fundraising events. One of the things Spencer Oliver said that Spencer suffered, was a world champion, the world was all over him. Then he had a brain injury. Sorry, but he was a champion and everyone loved him. Then he had a brain injury and he was in hospital and he wasn't in the spotlight, but Colin was always there to talk to and got him out some very dark times. So yeah, I think he transcended being a boxing journalist and become just sort of part of British boxing. And yeah, I think everyone, yeah, he Michael Watson, again, someone who suffered a real tragedy in the sport that Colin would have covered. He wrote for me that all the fight that not Colin knew fighters and cared about fighters, and he also campaigned for fighters. I think I know when there were tragedies like Michael's and Gerald McLennan's, whenever there was a fundraiser, whenever there was something to be done to improve the health and welfare of fighters, I think, and Frank Warren echoed that as well. They said that Colin was always at the forefront of that, whether it was weight classes or weigh-in schedules. And I don't know if the video's gone up yet, but Frank did a great video with us as well. So, yeah, just our paper today looks amazing. Our page designers and staff did an incredible job. The photos, you can see what he's done. So yeah, I implore anyone go out and grab a paper and have a look. Or I put a lot of stuff out on my Twitter just in case people don't buy a paper anymore. Yeah, a man. Yeah, just think a real legend, and yeah, a life and a career to celebrate rather than sit around and be sad about. Maybe I hope that doesn't sound trite, but yeah, 90-year-old man who became a legend in British boxing. So celebrate it rather than mourn his loss. I hope. I think.
Absolutely well said, Wally. And unfortunately, we've got to go on the same sort of vein. And another great figure in the world of boxing, George Foreman, passed away too. I got the kind of feeling, I was saying this to a couple of my colleagues as well in the industry, that George, of course, before my time, but his legacy obviously impacts further than my time in the sport. But I got the feeling like maybe in the last few years, he sort of kind of, I guess, pushed away from the boxing spotlight and focused on his own um, current and I guess local kind of issues. Obviously, he was being a pastor in his church. But did you get the sense that George, of course, like loved boxing, but I guess moved on away too from that spotlight and the want to be known as a boxer?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure he would always want to have been known as a boxer, but you're right. I hadn't seen him for a long time. I went back and looked at lots of clips and videos, and I didn't see anything too regular. When I spoke to Lennox Lewis about 3 days ago, again for another really good tribute, he said to me that he had seen George at one of the Saudi shows recently, but I couldn't think what one. I assume it would have been the Undisputed, the Fury Usyk, but I don't remember seeing George there. But Lennox did say he had a really bad knee. He was almost immobile with a massive knee problem. So, perhaps being carted out. I don't mean to sound that rude, but carted around boxing arenas or flying to Saudi Arabia just saw something wasn't he couldn't do anymore if he'd just become immobile. Don't forget this was a monster of a man who had to carry around all that weight and fitness for so long. And in his era, when there were injuries, you didn't have incredible doctors or plans or how to recover from ACLs. He was just patched up and probably given a load of injections at the time that were fine. But you know, you have it with footballers now that yeah. So anyway, it sounded like his knee was really bad. But my one thing that again I tried to get across. I think it got edited out of the piece that I wrote. Um, just because it was so much lovely stuff to say, was that you don't have to you don't have to go too far back, and they're even around now to see great. And I will say African American heavyweights, especially that were either world champions or were millionaires, but then they ended up penniless, destitute, scratching around. There are guys now that sometimes I see at Vegas shows like that. I see them looking like, you know, Evander Holyfield boxed an MMA guy not long ago and got battered. It was sad to see. I see Riddick Bowe. Sometimes I get emails from some guy says he's Riddick Bowe's PR man. We want to get Riddick another fight. If we go years and years back, maybe that was more their time. But I thought it was wonderful that we never saw George Foreman down on his luck. We never saw George Foreman struggling. Um, the horrific Parkinson's that took Muhammad Ali, his old pal. We never saw George suffer. So there's two images of George Foreman. There's a 26-year-old monster, moustache, afro, destroying people like Joe Frazier. Then there's the lovable, roly-poly, like a giant Buddha, becoming a two-time world champion at 45. And then that's it. I even like even when he had the grill, he just looked like the same guy who won the world title at 45. So I think that's wonderful. We never saw a bad George Foreman. We never saw a sick George Foreman. I personally didn't. Um, the family's tribute was wonderful, and again, 70, 76. Yeah, it's not a great age these days. It'd be wonderful to have him for another 20, 15 more years. But what a life to have led. He was a mugger at one stage, going nowhere. Olympic champion, two-time world champion. He revolutionised the world of culinary barbecuing indoors with a £200 million fortune that his family can enjoy for generations. Frank Warren called him and Ali and Frazier the Holy Trinity, and I thought that was perfect. The heavyweight Holy Trinity. Even if there's a great man of one era, if he doesn't have the dance partners, people will always sort of wonder how good he was. Foreman had great dance partners. He was in incredible fights. Um, so yeah, again, 12 children left behind. So yeah, again, hopefully everyone can just celebrate the life. Hopefully that the top ranked YouTube channel that has all his old fights, people just go back and watch and learn and read about it. Because I don't, I'm an idiot, mate. I didn't know anything. I sat down and read. I've got a few good books like Hugh McElvenney and stuff. And when George Foreman wouldn't have been at the forefront of everyone's mind a month ago, 6 months ago. Now he's gone. Any young kid, any young heavyweight, any young boxing fan will hopefully, yeah, have a look at that incredible career. Because Lennox said to me, I said it seemed insane that 28-year-old bloke, the mean, surly, violent guy, it was even the same human being as that 45-year-old that went back and did it. And yeah, I can't ever see anyone ever doing anything like that again. They probably wouldn't be allowed to, mate. They wouldn't get licensed at 45. So wonderful career, incredible achievement. Yeah, one to celebrate. So it's a shame that era of heavyweights is now gone. But if there is a heaven, mate, I'm sure those three big boys are sitting somewhere growling about who was the best. And yeah, it'd be pretty cool.
Wally, wonderful tributes. Is there anything else in the boxing sphere that's caught your eye that you'd like to talk about at all before I let you crack on with the rest of your studies today?
There's nothing really going on in the sphere, is there?
No,
What's in
I
the
don't think
sphere these days?
we're waiting for more from the sphere, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit worrying that there's not much sphere action.
Mm.
Like good card in Liverpool, then nothing. I guess because the UFC was just on, we would have had a quiet week. Nothing in the UK this week.
Pat
Yeah, a
Brown
little bit
is this
worrying.
week.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, not a lot going on.
Hmm.
And
I'm
then
sure.
the Dillian White Manchester card sort of fell apart a little bit, saved by Hergovich and Joyce. So yeah, it's a bit of a strange bit of a dip at a minute, but yeah, hopefully things liven up a little bit soon, matey. Otherwise, you will be out of a job. Coming to me for boxing PT classes, won't you, on the beg?
I wouldn't
And the
mind.
prices will be high for you.
For me, no, I don't get mates rates.
Only if we spar.
Anytime, any place, anywhere. Wally, thank you so much for speaking to Seconds Out. We'll catch up very soon.